In today's video, I'm going to walk you through 5 common makeup mistakes that many people make after the age of 50, and I have made them right here on YouTube. So please be kind in the comments and stick around to find out how I fixed them. So mistake number 1 is going ahead with the wrong shade foundation. In this case, I was tricked into buying the Makeup by Mario foundation in the shade 2N because 2N is my shade in Dior, and you can see very clearly from this image on the screen that the foundation is far too pale for me. Mistake number 2 is wearing too orange a bronzer. I was trying out the contents of the number 7 boxes, and I've used the bronzer that came in, I think, both the Advent and the Pro Artist collections, I think. And unfortunately, the bronzer that came was far too shimmery and far too orange for me. Mistake number 3 is unflattering eyeshadow placements. I was following tutorials that promised they were going to lift and lighten your eyes, but on my hooded, downturned eyes, it just didn't work. You can see that it's far too dark and the hooding kind of overlaps the colour. Mistake number 4 is an unflattering eyeliner placement, and you can see here that I was trying to do a line under the eyes and then use the brightening liner as well, and I think that was a mistake. I think using both eyeliners at once just created a really harsh dark line under the eyes. And mistake number 5 is going ahead and using too bright a cheek and lip colour. I was so excited to try out Adventurous palette, but that cheek colour was far too pink, and the lipstick that I bought to match with it was also far too bright and pink for my skin. So let's go ahead and rescue our makeup look by fixing all 5 of those mistakes. We're going to start with a foundation. Now, last time I used Makeup by Mario in the shade 2N, and actually this was the original Surreal Skin foundation, and I didn't realise when I bought a replacement that I was buying the natural Surreal Skin foundation, and this one's had much better reviews actually. So not only is the colour of this one going to be better for me, but also the consistency is completely different. I've bought this in the shade 7C, so that's a darker shade, and this time it's a cool rather than a light neutral, and you can see on the palette the difference in consistency. This is the 2N in the original, and this is the 7C in the natural finish, and this one is the one we're going to go with today. Okay, so that is our 7C foundation completed. I hope you agree that this is a much better colour match than the mistakes image that we looked at earlier. I think this is a pretty good match for my skin tone, and actually this has got quite a nice finish on it, this foundation. So on to fixing mistake number 2, which was a bronzer that's too orange. I believe in the images we looked at that this was the bronzer I was using. This is from number 7. It's not something that I would have gone out and bought, but it was in the Advent calendar, and let me just swatch this for you. And I've kind of swatched across the 2 shades, and look at that. That is really warm, really bronze, and I might get away with that as an eyeshadow, but as a bronzer, that was completely too orange for me. You can't necessarily see until you swatch it on your hand just how bronze that is actually. So that's the mistake I made, was going ahead and using this as a bronzer. And in fact, there are 2 issues here. One is the colour being far too orange, and the other issue is it's just a bit too shimmery for me. I have a number of better option bronzers. One we can look at is the Estee Lauder Bronze Goddess. Let me just swatch that and compare it next to the number 7, you can see that although it's still quite warm, it's nothing it's nothing compared to that bright bronze shade we had down there. And another option I have is the Guerlain Terracotta in Light, and if I swatch some of that one on my hand as well, again we can see, it's this one here, we can see a much lighter shade than this bright golden bronze. These are still warm, but they're at least a little bit more subtle than that one. And I do have some cream bronzers that are more of a cool tone as well. But I'm going to go ahead and use the Estee Lauder and the Guerlain today to bronze my face. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the Bronze Goddess. I actually like to use multiple shades of a product because I think you'd get a better sort of view of dimension. If you just go and use one colour for each sort of area of your face, there's always a risk you're going to end up with a kind of a flat, one-dimensional look. So I'm going to start this blending in the Bronze Goddess, and then we'll pick up some of the Guerlain as well. And this is the Guerlain going on now, and you can see it's got a bit more colour to it than the Bronze Goddess. And always dab a little bit on the nose and the eyes. So hopefully you'll agree, we still have a nice bronzing effect, but it's not nearly as orange as the original Mistakes video bronzer. So mistake number 3 was the eyeshadow being a little bit too dark, and it pains me to say it, but this Victoria Beckham palette in Olive, it's just not my colour. I've been looking at this thinking, how can I rescue it? Is there something I can do? Obviously this is a super expensive luxury item, and I just don't know how I can make it work. These are just not my colours. I worry that by even attempting to use these again, I am just going to drag my face down rather than lift it up. So I'm not quite sure what to do about this, but we're not going to be using this one today. I just don't think it's worth the risk. So instead, I am going to do my eyes with some shades from the Idol Cafe Crush palette. Again, this is not all that cool toned. It does have quite a lot of warm shades in here, but somehow they are more in keeping with my appearance. I think they are softer than the Olive Victoria Beckham palette and moving closer to the kind of summer range of colours, whereas I think the Victoria Beckham palette is a bit too much in the autumn palette for me. But as we move on to apply our eye makeup, this brings me on to mistake 4, which was eyeshadow placement. And unfortunately, there are so many tutorials out there at the moment that tell you to darken this corner, to fan it out, to lift it up. And I'm finding that with my eye shape, which is slightly downturned and a little bit hooded, those techniques are just not working for me. So what I have found works is actually, on the whole, to keep the eyeshadow fairly light. As tempting as it is to go in with nice dark smoky colours, they aren't really doing me any favours, and I'm trying to keep the colour in this middle portion of the eye. Because these eyes are slightly downturned, any darkness at the corners is dragging and emphasising, and any attempt to sweep that up, it just doesn't work, particularly when you smile and you discover that when you smile, the eyes downturn even more. So I'm just applying one of the lighter shades from this palette across the upper portion of the crease, and I am going to put a light shimmery shade on the lid and perhaps something underneath the eye, and that's going to be about all we do with the eyeshadow palette today. And if there isn't a single colour in the palette that's precisely to your tastes, it's perfectly reasonable to mix a couple of the colours together, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm mixing together a shimmery champagne with a shimmery pink. Now, if you like a light bright eye, you might want to leave it there and just finish it off with a nice slick of mascara. But going on to mistake number 4, which included having too much intensity of the eyeliner too far away from the eye, we can go in with an eyeliner pencil and tightline around these eyes to give them some darkness and definition, and so that's what I'm going to do. I think tightlining is the mature woman's best friend, because it doesn't matter how crepey or hooded or anything your eyes are, your eye line inside the eye is going to be pretty much the same as it always was, and so there's not really any downsides to tightlining. You might want to just do the upper eye and leave it there, or you could go in for the lower lash as well. And so depending on the effect you want, you can go with just the upper lash or with the upper and lower lash as well. We can finish off these eyes with some mascara, and it's good sometimes to just keep it to the top lash. Sometimes find that by putting mascara on the lower lashes, it can emphasize that heaviness and create more shadow underneath, especially if, like me, you're prone to smudging it. Now, mistake number 5 was wearing too bright a colour lips and cheeks, particularly if you are muted in tone like I am. It's a real risk that you can be drawn to colours that are too bright. Now, there is something that we can do to recover a too bright lipstick. By pairing it with a darker or more muted lip liner, you can sometimes recover the lipstick and actually make it wearable. But if your blush is just too bright and too pigmented, I'm not sure there's a lot of coming back from that. So the big thing to take away is to make sure you buy blushes that suit your complexion even when they're applied quite heavily. You don't want to be buying a bright one thinking, oh well, I'll just put a little bit on, because it's so easy just to have put way too much on. I'm going to apply this YSL blush. This is Make Me Blush in the shade 44 today. It's still quite highly pigmented, but it's not an overpowering shade for me. By no means am I saying stay away from bright colours, just assess, is it too bright for you? And in terms of lipsticks, it's such a shame. I brought this beautiful pink lipstick from Lancome. It says that it's Pink Express Drama Matte, and you've seen in the footage that is just far too bright for me. Now, I think we could recover this by using a darker or a brown lip liner that I think would make this much more wearable. I don't know if I can demonstrate maybe on my hand. If I put brown lip liner on there and apply some of this lipstick next to it. So there we have the plain lipstick, and there we have the lipstick next to the liner. I think if I mix those in, we're going to get a much more muted pink shade. Yeah, and it's turned, by mixing those together, that has turned into a much more wearable rosy shade. So if you have bought a beautiful lipstick, much like I have, and you think I don't want to throw it away, that's one solution to this problem. Another solution is simply to find one from your collection that isn't quite so bright, and I have another one here. This is the shade 3. It says Electrifying Spring, and if I swatch that on my hand, you can see that's more of a muted rose shade, and so that is the one I'm going to go ahead and apply today. I am going to apply it with a lip liner. I have discovered that if I do not wear a lip liner, my lips sort of shrink and disappear. Even without overlining, I just find that using a lip liner really creates a strong edge for the lip, and if you have slightly smaller lips like I do, that is going to help no end in creating a fuller lip. So today I have lined my lips in this NARS pencil in the shade Rosebud, and I'm going to go ahead and use the Electrifying Spring shade from Lancome. And I think that is a really flattering shade on my muted skin tone. So that's how we recover back from making all those mistakes that I've made in the past. Please be kind in the comments about all of the mistakes that I've made, but I hope you like the fixes that I have suggested to remedy them. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Please drop a comment down below of what makeup mistakes you have been making and how you have gone ahead and fixed them. If you like this video, you might want to check out this other one here. Don't forget, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.